We are now joined by Kelly Wilson, who is the director of the J. Irwin Miller Architecture Program, located here in the former Republic newspaper building. Well, thanks so much for having us.
Well, thank you. I'm glad to be here.
So we'll talk a little bit more about this building specifically later, but could you tell me just a little bit about the city in general when it comes to architecture?
Oh, I'd be glad to. Columbus, it's a city of about 48,000 people that in the circles of architecture and design has been punching way above its weight for many years. And so it's a city that not only collected a number of modern buildings, it's a city that engages the human spirit in a very unusual way. It's best to describe it as an opportunity to feel hope about the human enterprise. And it's not hard to feel when you walk across the plaza designed by I.M. Pei with Henry Moore's sculpture across from the first modern church in the United States, designed by Eliel Saarinen. At twilight, the lights are lowering by the sky, but the lights inside the library are coming up. And though it's as strong as a fortress, you see clean through it, which is the openness inherent to libraries and our democracies. And you feel that walking across this plaza and your heart skips a beat. And you think, how did this even happen? Is that remarkable? Now, the city began doing experiments with design in the 50s when Mr. J. Irwin Miller thought to help improve the quality of the life of the city by addressing the school system. This is post-World War II, and struck upon the idea of doing a one-off opportunity to put architects before the school board that he would pay the architectural fees for if they chose one of the six. And Harry Weiss was chosen. The Schmidt School was built, and it went so well. The school board came back to Mr. Miller and said, "Can we do it again?" And that's when the foundation was developed, and more schools were built along lines of other architects. And then any public building in this town can appeal to the foundation to become part of this program. This inspired enough of the city that other buildings that are not public buildings, churches, private homes, residences, were built inspired by this example. The city is salted with 60 to 70 of these buildings. But the remarkable quality of this is that the modern buildings in this town with their neighbors, when I have trouble going to sleep at night, in my head, I have a big plan of the city, and I mentally extract all the modern buildings out, put them to the side, look at the city, and it feels like a normal place. I put the modern buildings back in, and suddenly all those good traditional neighbors become even better. That's a remarkable ability for architecture to raise up the quality inherent in other things and make the experience of civic consciousness, which is what's behind public architecture, become palatable. So what's behind these buildings, as Mr. Miller would have also said, is a human spirit that he's more proud of, in fact, than the brick and mortar that it represents. But I'm an architect. I read deeply into buildings, and I feel their forces. I read their languages, and I see the stories of designers with great patience and a great deal of energy and talent put meaningfulness into every part of a building. And that's one of the big success stories of Columbus, is that these architects were mostly young when they were chosen. Who knew that the buildings they would make while they were young were going to be that good? They've stood the test of time, and they inspire us to this day.
So it sounds like the structures in this town are very special. Can you tell us a little bit about the building that we're in now?
Yeah, we're in the Republic, formerly the Republic newspaper, which had been in this family since the 1870s. And this building, completed in 1971 by Skidmore, Owens, and Merrill, the architect of that firm, Myron Goldsmith, was actually the structural engineer for Mies van der Rohe, a very famous modern architect. The building is approximately 25,000 square feet. It's a steel skeleton whose walls are 100% glass. In fact, these are the largest glass annealed panels you could get in 1971, which describes as big as they are. And the idea of the building, which sits, this glass cage sits in this beautiful piece of mini park across from the county courthouse and lawn, and it grabs great quantities of light as it comes in. Now, the point of the building, when it was a newspaper, and what Myron Goldsmith was doing, was to, and really this is Mr. Brown, the newspaper's owner, Robert Brown, was to put the printing presses that formerly are all hidden in any other building up to this time. This was the first time printing presses were put against the glass and exposed to the public realm, so that the machinations of the making of the newspaper were expressed to the urban realm. A democratic gesture, if I've ever seen one, of transparency. And they were painted chromium yellow in bright colors, and at night, many people still do remember, now adults now as children, driving by the street and seeing the papers being churned out for the next run. So hence all the glass and the printing presses brought forward to be shown against the glass of the building. So it's a lovely building that sits in also a crucial area, which holds the southern edge of the city against one of its biggest monuments in the county courthouse.